Hey everyone, I hope you've all had such a wonderful week. Today I thought we would talk about anxiety. It's something that I personally have been through and still go through in my life, and something I find I get a lot of messages about. So I thought I would share some of the tips that I have found have helped me and things that I do on a daily basis to help me when I do feel anxious, but also things that I do to help prevent my anxiety from happening and figuring out triggers of where it really comes up in my life. So I have a couple of things to share with you. So I'm going to go through each one and I really hope it helps you. This video is sponsored by the lovely Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands and thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people just like us. You can explore new skills, develop existing skills, or just get lost in a creative flow. I really love trying new things. I speak about it all the time. I love exploring and learning new skills, new information for every single part of my life, especially when it's about doing things just for me, for my own growth and not for result. So this time I tried the Ultimate Self-Care Playbook, Discover and Nurture Your Centered Self by Jonathan Van Ness. Firstly, he is just so fun and he's got great energy, but he also shares everything from how to develop a routine to releasing limiting beliefs, which I really resonated with, especially in my life right now. Skillshare is curated specifically for learning, so there are no ads and they're always launching new premium classes, so you can explore and follow wherever your creativity takes you. When you join, you can also try one of Skillshare's live classes and connect with popular teachers while watching and working along all together. So the first 1,000 of you that click the link in the description will get 1 month free trial to Skillshare. So you can start exploring your creativity today. So anxiety usually comes from us worrying about the past or rushing our mind into the future. It's a lack of presence where our body and our mind are in two different places. We may physically be here, but our mind has traveled somewhere completely different. I read a definition of anxiety that said that it is persistent and excessive worry that makes us lose all rational perspective and makes us expect the worst. So one thing I have found has really helped me whenever I am in an anxious moment is instead of sitting in my anxiety or thinking about the anxiety too much, I have to take action. And what I mean by that is whatever it is that you're anxious about, when we end up taking steps towards making that situation better, it actually helps us feel like we are part of the solution. It helps us feel like we are part of making that situation better. And when we feel useful and when we are active in doing something, we can't also be anxious at the same time. Take time to think about that small thing that you could do in that moment to take action towards making yourself feel better in some way, whether it's to do with the situation at hand or whether it is taking yourself out for a walk. Taking yourself out of that anxious environment can really help us, help calm us and relieve our mind from that. Next up, another thing I use in moments of stress or anxiety are essential oils. Now, if you think about it, scent has such a powerful impact on us. When you smell something that you've smelt before, it brings back a nostalgic effect. And in the same way, there are certain smells that can help calm our nerves and trigger a relaxation response from our body. Oils like lemon, jasmine, and lavender are recommended for anxiety. Lemon essential oil is known to uplift our mood and bring more of a cheerful atmosphere around us. Bergamot essential oil is used to relieve anxiety, but also take our body into a deep relaxation mode. It's often used for people who suffer from panic attacks or panic disorders as well. So it really helps to calm the nervous system. There are some brands that do ready mixed essential oil blends specifically for stress. Two of my favorite brands are doTERRA and Sage. One is called Stress Relief and the other is Serenity. Both come in rollerball form, so you can literally just put it onto your pressure points. I usually put it on my wrist, on my forehead, and sometimes on my neck, just so that I can smell those oils. Taking deep breaths with them. Within moments, I find my mind is racing less and I feel a lot more grounded. Another technique that I love to use is breath work. In yoga, it talks about breath work. It's the connection between our mind and our body. And I'm sure you've noticed whenever you get anxious or whenever you feel any kind of emotion, our breath changes with it. And so instead of us being controlled by our breath, it says if we're able to take control of our breath, we'd be able to control our emotion and our emotional response also. Simple, deep belly breathing, just taking deep breaths and allowing the breath to go into your stomach stomach really helps to trigger our relaxation response in our body. It also lowers the blood pressure and heart rate, which actually are the physical manifestations that our body shows when we are anxious. Scientifically, it's been shown that when we are taking deep, deep breaths, we can't feel anxious at the same time as taking these deep breaths. It almost stops us from having those physical symptoms of anxiety, whether it is your heart rate, whether it's the sweating, even the rapid breath or blood pressure rising. It helps us to control those physical representations or physical manifestations of stress, which automatically makes our mind think that we're not stressed anymore, that our body's not feeling it anymore. I've definitely done that, and breath is probably the one thing I would say has just changed my life, whether it's to do with my anxiety, whether it's to do with my worries, my ability to speak in public places, my ability to feel confident. I would say breath has definitely been such an anchor for me, and in anxiety more so than anywhere else. I remember when I was at school, and actually even when I first started making videos, I would feel comfortable speaking in front of a camera because I felt like I was in control. But as soon as I walked onto a stage or had to do something live, I found my whole body would my whole body would tense up. My shoulders would be high. I would be holding my breath. My heart rate would be, I don't even know how high, and I would be sweating profusely. And I started practicing just deep belly breathing. It would even be while I was on stage. You wouldn't be able to tell, but I would be taking seriously deep breaths in because I was almost paralyzed by my anxiety. To not even, if I was on a panel, I pretty much wouldn't speak the whole time, and then didn't get invited to speak on the next panel because of it. But after I started using my breath, I found I was able to control my emotions to the point where I did an interview on YouTube. I think it was a Women of Impact interview. And even when I did the Today Show, everybody was saying to me, you looked so comfortable. Like you looked so comfortable when you were there. Gosh, you're just such a natural. And I couldn't believe when I heard people saying that if they were able to experience what was going on in my mind at the time, you would never match the two. But the only thing I was making sure I was doing was deep breathing. Just before the camera started, and in between, my breaths were so much deeper. And honestly, that allowed my physical body not to show symptoms or signs of the anxiety that I was feeling internally. Just from that, you can see that breathwork really helps, and it definitely works to at least relieve part of it. So look, I know meditation seems absolutely impossible when you're feeling anxious. Not only are you wanting to pace up and down, it's difficult to sit still, let alone sit with your thoughts in silence. So I'm not going to tell you to sit and do a meditation that where you're listening to your breath or where you are trying to listen to your thoughts. Instead, refocus on something else. One of the meditations I love doing when I am feeling anxious or my mind is racing is to scan my entire body. I actually did a 10-minute meditation, guided meditation for a stress and anxiety, where I go through this whole process with you. It takes you through scanning your entire body from head to toe. So for example, if your shoulders are up high, you scan your shoulders and you say to them, okay, now bring your shoulders away from your ears. If you notice your eyes are tensed and scrunched together, you relax your eyes. And you go through your body in exactly that same way, going through your fingers, your hands, your legs, your feet, your stomach. And you will be so surprised that you think you're in a relaxed state. You think that your body is not tense, but as soon as you tell it to relax, oh my goodness, you notice a complete difference. The muscles relax in a completely different way. I would say that with meditation, if you're not in the practice of doing a silent meditation, this is one of the best things that you can do for anxiety in terms of a meditation. I really find that it, again, calms your physical body, which then tells your mind that you are okay. And almost like an inverse effect. I find a lot of the time for anxiety, we're trying to figure out how to control our mind. But sometimes we're holding it so much in our physical body that we need to let go of that first before our mind feels like it's okay. We're almost in fight or flight mode. But lastly, on this topic, there is a specific breath work called Anulom Vilom, which is alternate nostril breathing. Essentially, it helps to balance out the right and left hemisphere of the brain. But you are taking your breath in through one side of the nose and releasing it through the other. Our nasal passages are actually linked to each side of the hemispheres, and so it takes in the breath oxygenates one side and then takes in the breath from the other side and oxygenates the other side of your brain too, which again increases relaxation in the body. Next up, we have tapping, which is also known as EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. This is pretty much similar to acupuncture, but without the needle. So it's a lot easier to do for yourself. Essentially what you're doing is you're tapping the meridian points on your body. The meridian points, I think they're part of Chinese medicine, or they've been discovered by Chinese medicine. And it says that those points are the points where energy flows through your body. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, there are 12 meridian points in your body. And what you're doing is going through each of those meridian points and tapping it, usually 7 times in each area. You're not tapping hard. It's very simple taps, very similar to this. Now, the pressure actually helps to release any energy that's stagnant in those parts of the body and helps the energy flow through freely. One thing I read that's recommended and that I found helped me when I've done this technique is to set an intention before you start, or even one phrase that you want to repeat to yourself while you're tapping. It can be different things for each place that you are tapping, or just a simple phrase like, "This too shall pass." It can be something that's very specific to your situation, or a phrase that you know brings calm to your mind. While you're tapping, repeat the phrase constantly while you're going through the motions. Now let me show you the meridian points, and you're going to tap them 7 times. So first you start with the top of your head, then your eyebrow, the side of your eye, under the eye, under the nose, your chin, the side of your hand, the beginning of your collarbone, and lastly under your arm. And then you can repeat that the other side, tapping 7 times in each point. Next up, we have one of my favorite self-care rituals called Abanga. Now, this is more of a preventative, but again, if you feel you are able to do it in moments that you are anxious, definitely will help you. Abanga means self-massage. It's an Ayurvedic ritual where you take oil, ideally warm oil, and you massage it all over your body. So this is something that you can do every single day. It helps to lubricate our nervous system because the oils that we put onto our skin is absorbed into our body. Now, if you don't have time to do it throughout your body, you can simply massage the top of your head and the base of your feet. I showed this in my evening routine video where I usually do it in the evenings. I find it really helps me to sleep well during the night. You know, if you think about when you're anxious, physical touch is actually so important to help soothe us. Imagine it's like someone giving you a hug. It really helps to calm our mind. And so in the same way, physical touch when you're doing an Abanga massage is the same. And it's almost better because you know yourself the best. And so showing yourself some love and being able to take yourself out of an anxious moment is almost more powerful than having someone else do that for you. So it's really simple. When you are doing your Abanga, you do long strokes towards your heart on your arms and your legs, and on your joints you do circular motions. This is a practice I really do recommend if you suffer from anxiety on a regular basis, and hopefully reduces the intensity of the anxiety that you're feeling. Next up, we have herbs and teas. Now, every time I think about a comforting moment, something that feels comforting to me, it's having a warm cup of tea, snuggling onto a sofa with a blanket and just feeling cozy. And I find that that is essentially what warm drinks or warm tea does for us, especially teas like chamomile, passion flower, and peppermint. All of them have been shown to have a calming effect on the body and to reduce nervousness too. Chamomile is known as a sleep aid, and apparently it's because it contains a compound that attaches to the brain receptors in the same way as Valium. And so it really helps to relax and soothe the body, which is perfect in times of anxiety. There was a study done by University of Pennsylvania where they gave people who were diagnosed with anxiety, I think an 8-week course of chamomile pills. And the results showed that the people who had been taking those chamomile pills actually had reduced signs of anxiety after those 8 weeks compared to those that didn't. Let's talk about the foods we are eating. From an Ayurvedic perspective, anxiety is an accumulation of the mobile, dry, and airy qualities that build up in the nervous system. And in Ayurveda, it says that like increases like and opposites balance. It means that we need to be eating foods that invoke the opposite qualities to light, mobile, and airy, which means we need grounding foods, moist foods, and foods that feel extremely comforting and nourishing to our gut. Our belly is often referred to as our second brain because it actually contains over 95% of the serotonin receptors throughout our body. And serotonin, for those of you who don't know, is referred to as the happy hormone. It's why you get butterflies in your stomach when you're feeling anxious. So science shows that there are certain foods that contain different vitamins and minerals that can help ease anxiety. It's recommended to increase your magnesium intake if you are feeling anxious. That's foods like nuts, seeds, lots of leafy greens, legumes, and whole grains. Low levels of antioxidants in the body have also been associated with anxiety. So increasing foods that have lots of antioxidants. Foods like berries, apples, prunes, broccoli, and beets, and spices like ginger and turmeric too. And lastly, low levels of vitamin D have also been found to be associated with higher anxiety. And talking from experience, over the past, I'd say month, I was finding myself feeling so anxious over things I would not normally feel anxious about. So for example, if I was anxious about work, suddenly my anxiety from work, about my work, would seep into my anxiety about not seeing my family. And then it would be about, oh my gosh, what if something happens to my family? And then that anxiety would then lead to another anxiety about something else. And it would make every part of my life feel like I was in complete anxiety. And it wasn't like me. It's not something I am used to feeling. And then I recently did a blood test and I got told, my doctor actually said, she was like, I don't even know how you're getting up in the morning. Like, I don't know how you're getting up in the morning and how you're even surviving because your vitamin D is so low. I think it's supposed to be 50 and mine was below 10. And so I've been taking supplements for the past month. I have to say it's reduced it tremendously, and that's probably the only thing I've changed because I was doing all of these other things. I was doing my Abanga, I was doing my breath work, but I was still getting myself into unnecessary states of anxiety, things which I would not normally feel anxious about. And I have to say within the past month, it's really, really improved. Now, I personally feel it is the vitamin D. I have been religiously taking it, but I also don't know. It could be just a different mindset that I'm in, but I would still recommend it, seeing as science does say that there is a link between the two, so there's no harm. And also low levels of vitamin D are not great for your joints, also linked to depression, and so whatever the reason, just increase your vitamin D. Get yourself into a hot bath, a steam room, or a jacuzzi, or even just snuggle up with a blanket around you. Science has shown that actually being in a state of warmth or having more warmth around you allows our muscles to relax. And so choose a warm bath in the evenings before you go to sleep. Or if you do find yourself feeling anxious, wrap yourself in a cozy blanket and just sit by the fireplace if you have one. Apparently having warmth in your body actually increases the production of serotonin, and the more happy hormone we have in our body, the less anxious we're going to feel. Spending more time in nature. Now, science has time and time again proven that being in nature helps with our health, whether it's reducing our blood pressure, our heart rate, and regulating the production of cortisol, which is the stress hormone in our body. It's not just because nature is beautiful. If you think about it, we come from nature. We are made from the elements. And so it's almost like going back home after a long time and giving your mum a big hug. There's nothing like it. And in the same way, when we reconnect back to nature, Mother Earth is basically hugging us, and we're almost connected back to our source. And so I find that it really calms me. That is one of my favorite things to do, is go out for a walk in nature when I'm feeling in my own thoughts. When I'm all up in my feels, I feel like I need to get out into nature, and it really does soothe me in a way that nobody else can. And I heard about this practice in Japan, which is called forest bathing. It's apparently taking in nature through all 5 senses. Again, another way to be mindful and to bring you back to your physical body if your mind is elsewhere. It says that you should go into nature and use all 5 senses to take it in. So whether it's your sight by seeing it, smelling the flowers around you, so that's for your nose, hearing the birds chirping, taking in the natural light. We are constantly absorbing artificial light when we're inside, so taking in the natural light that we are supposed to, it nourishes us deeply in a way that is beyond explanation. You just have to go out there and try it. Expressing your feelings. Now, one thing I found is if a lot of things build up in your mind that you are anxious about, even if you end up being able to suppress it where you're not thinking about it all the time, as soon as something small triggers you, as soon as you get a little trigger of something that makes you feel anxious, suddenly it's like opening the gateways to everything else. So you feel stressed about this small thing, and suddenly everything else that you've bottled up comes flowing through. And that's also what I think I was experiencing when I started thinking about my family, when I was actually just stressed out about my work. It's things that I had been bottling up, having not seen them through COVID, being really eager and impatient to see them. It was all bottled up in me. So every time I was even anxious about something small, those feelings were flowing through me every single time. And so one way I found to channel that is, even if you're not going to speak to somebody about it, speak to yourself. Write it in a journal. Write down every single thing that comes to your mind, because it's true, if you don't release it, it's going to be within you somewhere. And if it's within you somewhere and it's something negative or something that makes your heart race or something that makes you feel on edge, whenever you get that feeling of anxiety, it's going to all come through like a flood. So really learn how you feel best to express your emotions. Sometimes it's talking to a friend. Sometimes it's speaking to yourself in a mirror. Sometimes it's writing it down. Whatever that release is for you, make sure you explore those different options and find the one that's best. I read a quote that said, opening up to yourself is the first step towards understanding your feelings, and talking to somebody else about it helps you realize you're not alone. And I thought that was really beautiful, and I think it's really important for us to understand our feelings first before we even try to express them to somebody else. And again, this is another way I find that the more I understand myself, the easier it is to get out of my anxiety. The more I get to learn about me and the way that I deal with things and the way that the things that calm me. Instead of people telling me the things that calm me, I have to experience it for myself. Because I could be telling you this list of long things that you could do, but maybe only one will work for you. But you have to go through the process of trying it. Otherwise, you're going off somebody else's body, somebody else's mind, and things that work for somebody else. That's not you. Give all of them a go and then see what works for you best. Next up, we have adaptogens. Adaptogens are herbs that helps us deal with the ups and downs of life. They help us recover from short-term and long-term physical or mental stress. Research has shown that adaptogens can help us combat fatigue, enhance our mental performance, and relieve stress. The one I would recommend for stress is ashwagandha. It helps build natural resistance and immunity to our daily stresses, while also promoting self-confidence, positive thinking, and feelings of fulfillment. You can get ashwagandha pills, but I recommend getting it in powder form and just adding it to a warm glass of milk in the evening before you sleep. Sometimes anxiety comes from just having too much in our mind. So the way that I handle that is by making a checklist. Now I have so many to-do lists, and I'm still trying to figure out how to then take those to-do lists and actually do them. But what it has helped is freeing up my mind to focus on the task at hand. So whenever I think of something, I will just write it down. I'll write it down on my notes, on my phone. I'll scribble it onto a piece of paper. And sometimes I'll even forget where that piece of paper's gone. But that's not the point. The point is it's taking it out of your mind and onto something else. So it frees up your mind to deal with whatever it is that you are feeling stressed about or that may lead you to anxiety. Because as soon as you're trying to focus on something, if you're constantly trying to remember something else, it puts too much pressure on your mind. And so to resolve that, it's a simple solution. We just release everything that we need to think about, or all the things that we need to do in the future, or even in that moment. Just make a list for yourself, and it just simplifies things in your mind. Next, I wanted to talk about a different type of journal, which is an impressions journal. Now in Sanskrit, impressions are called samskaras, and it says that through every single thing that comes in through our 5 senses, it leaves impressions in our mind, and some stronger than others. And so what can be really useful is sometimes we don't even know where our stress is coming from. Sometimes we don't even recognize our anxieties or where they're rooting from. An impressions journal encourages you to basically be more aware of your surroundings and write down every single thing that you find is coming through your senses, whether it's things that you're hearing, things that you are seeing, things that you are eating, every single sense, whatever you are allowing into you, it can be quite a tedious task. Like, it's quite a long-winded task. You're having to observe everything and you're having to write it down. But at the end of the day, you can reflect and think, oh, what am I still holding on to from all of these things that I've experienced in the day? And if you don't want to do it throughout the day, you could do it in the end of the day and think, well, I'm feeling like this. What in my day triggered that? And see what sense it's come through. And then you're able to kind of do process of elimination and see, well, maybe this is something I don't really need in my life if it's triggering a response of stress. And I find that we can go through our day on day on day not being aware of really anything we're taking into our senses. We will eat mindlessly, we will see things mindlessly, we will hear things mindlessly, but actually it's going into our subconscious and it is still leaving impressions. So becoming more aware of it will be so useful in identifying the triggers for your stress. And lastly, if all else fails, the one thing I turn to is putting on a good song really loud and dancing it out. Songs and music are so powerful. Sound vibrations through our body are so powerful. One, meditation music especially can help move this energy through our body. Anything stagnant, anything that is being stubborn and not wanting to leave, movement and music and the sound vibrations can really help kind of blast it out of our system. And even if you don't want to listen to meditation music, I recommend putting on a song that takes you back to a happy moment in life. I have many of those, whether it's a good summer's day in London that I'm driving through with my friends, or whether it's one that I'm dancing to my nephew with. There are so many songs that I know take me back to a happy place, and I put it on and I'll put it on loud, and sometimes I'll be crying while I'm singing the lyrics and I'll be dancing, but it's one of the best releasing things that I can possibly recommend. It feels phenomenal. I will say this, if you are finding that you are going through a lot of anxiety and it's affecting your physical, mental and emotional health, also see a therapist. I find that there's a lot of stigma, especially, I find more so in London than in the US, but especially in other countries. I know I have a lot of viewers in India, and there's such a stigma against getting therapy. But therapy is just speaking out your heart and your emotions to someone that's trusted, but also has the medical ability to help you navigate your life in a way that doesn't trigger you or help resolve the things that you are going through. So please let me know if you try all of these. I hope at least one works for you, and if some of them do, I would love to hear your feedback. It fills my heart to know that whatever I am sharing helps you in some way in your life. So definitely let me know, and if you have any other recommendations for people, please put them in the comments below. Sending you all so much love and gratitude, and yes, sending you lots and lots of love. If you like this video, or even if you didn't like it at all, leave a message anyway, so I can get to know you as you get to know me, and we can build a loving, bouncy family together.